Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a book so notorious, it literally turned its author's name into an insult. Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince. For 500 years, if you call someone Machiavellian, you're not paying them a compliment. You're calling them a devious, power-hungry monster.
For centuries, his name was basically just shorthand for evil. In Elizabethan England, playwrights had a field day with it, twisting his name into Machiavelli or Machiavellian just to make sure the audience knew who the ultimate bad guy was. He was painted as the man who taught tyrants their trade, the guy who wrote the playbook for political gangsters. So, was he really the devil's spin doctor? Or was he something else entirely? Well, to really understand this scandalous little book, we first have to understand the man and the incredibly violent, chaotic world that created him, a world of constant betrayal, invasion, and political collapse.
So let's head back in time. We're going to late 15th century Florence, and you can forget any of those serene Renaissance paintings you might have in your head. This place was on fire.
You have to understand, Machiavelli's entire career was shaped by crisis. This wasn't theory for him. He saw huge foreign armies just waltz through Italy because all the Italian states were too busy squabbling. He lived through a fundamentalist theocracy under this preacher, Savonarola, a guy who ended up getting burned at the stake. Then, for 14 years, Machiavelli served the Florentine Republic, and he worked tirelessly trying to build a reliable citizen army because he saw firsthand just how treacherous and totally useless mercenaries were. And then, it all just came crashing down. The powerful Medici family came back, and Machiavelli lost everything.
And here's something that is absolutely crucial to remember. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince in some comfy study. No, he wrote it in exile, right after he'd been imprisoned and tortured because the new Medici rulers suspected him of plotting against them. So this book, it wasn't some abstract theory of power. It was a desperate, brilliant, and incredibly audacious job application. He was basically telling the Medicis, hey, you guys need a guy like me.
So, okay. What did he actually write that caused such a massive uproar for 500 years? What was the core of his shocking advice?
This was the bombshell. In a world where leaders were supposed to be paragons of Christian virtue, mercy, honesty, piety, Machiavelli just comes out and says, hold on a minute. He argued that in the brutal reality of politics, those very same virtues could get you and your entire state completely destroyed. To survive, a leader has to be prepared to operate outside the normal moral code.
But he wasn't just saying, go be cruel. He makes a really critical distinction. He talks about cruelty well used, which he compares to a surgeon's knife. It's got to be swift, precise, and used only to cut out a threat and restore order. You do it once, you do it decisively, and then you stop. The opposite, cruelty badly used, is when it just drags on, creating endless fear and hatred.
And he wasn't blind to morality either. He brings up this ancient tyrant, Agathocles, who seized power by massacring his rivals. And Machiavelli admits, yeah, the method worked. It got Agathocles power. But then he says explicitly that it did not bring him glory. He says methods like that can't earn a leader a place among the truly great. So there's a clear line for him between just being effective and being admirable. Now, if Machiavelli had a poster boy for his ideas, it was definitely Cesare Borgia. This guy was the son of the corrupt Pope Alexander VI, and he carved a state for himself out of central Italy with terrifying speed and precision. For Machiavelli, watching Borgia was like watching a masterclass in action. Just look at the cold, hard logic here. First, Borgia systematically peeled away the allies of his main rivals. Then, once they were totally isolated, he crushed them. He was building his power base so fast and so solidly that it could survive almost any shock. Machiavelli saw this as a brilliant political project, not just random violence. In his view, Borgia's only real failure was a fatal miscalculation due to what he called an extraordinary run of bad luck. Basically, he got deathly ill right when his dad, the Pope, died. Okay, so if the book was this cold-eyed analysis of political reality, this job application from a patriot who lost everything, how on earth did Machiavelli become the boogeyman of European politics? Well, for starters, the book wasn't even published while he was alive. The real storm kicked off decades later. First, the Catholic Church banned it. One English cardinal even claimed it was written by Satan's finger. But the real tipping point, the event that sealed his fate, was the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in France, a horrific slaughter of Protestants that just shocked all of Europe. After a horror like that, people needed a villain, and they found a perfect one. the French Queen Mother, Catherine de' Medici. See, she was Italian, and a Protestant writer named Innocent Gentillet jumped on all that anti-Italian prejudice to create a masterpiece of propaganda. He claimed Catherine was a secret disciple of Machiavelli, and that the massacre was the direct result of his wicked foreign ideas. Gentilet's book, Anti-Machiavel, was a massive bestseller. The problem? It was a complete distortion. He cherry-picked quotes, took them completely out of context, and basically painted Machiavelli as a monster who just loved evil for its own sake. For generations, people didn't actually read The Prince, they read this sensationalized caricature. And so, the myth was born. And that distorted image really stuck. But the debate over what Machiavelli actually meant, well, that has never stopped. Is he a teacher of evil? Or something far more complicated? The sheer range of interpretations is just incredible. You've got the philosopher Rousseau arguing it was all a secret satire, a book pretending to teach kings how to be tyrants while actually exposing their brutal methods to the people. Then you have Bertrand Russell, who just flat out called it a handbook for gangsters. And of course, actual tyrants like Mussolini loved it, praising it as a practical guide. And what makes this so fascinating is that Machiavelli's other great book, The Discourses on Livy, is a passionate defense of republics and citizen liberty, pretty much the exact opposite of what he talks about in The Prince. And this, right here, is probably his most radical, most uncomfortable idea. Before Machiavelli, political writers mostly described how leaders should act, based on religious ideals. Machiavelli's revolution was to look at how leaders actually have to behave to win. He showed that there are two competing moral codes, the one for private individuals and the brutal necessities of running a state, and sometimes a leader is forced to choose between them. Machiavelli never tells us to enjoy this choice. He just tells us that the choice exists. And that's the profound question The Prince leaves us with, a question that echoes from his chaotic world all the way to the halls of power today. Is it always possible to be a good person and a good leader? Or must a leader sometimes choose, as Machiavelli so hauntingly put it, to love their country more than their own soul?